Good afternoon. It's the 22nd of August, and it's a lovely afternoon out, kind of breezy, and it actually rained this morning, which I heard about. It's raining outside. Make it stop raining, Dad. It's like having a 3-year-old. Anyway, tomorrow's the 12th Sunday after Pentecost, and fair warning, this may be a longer sermon than usual, but there's important things that I need to say. You might want to write some of it down, or you can get a copy of the sermon. Because I think, if my gut is right, that there are some things we need to be doing. Not just thinking about, but actually doing. The gospel comes from, as usual in year A, from the Gospel of Matthew. And I've taken from the Old Authorized Version just because it's a rather well-known piece that we used to hear a lot in the Old Authorized Version, the King James Version. And so why don't we get started? The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew. When Jesus came to the coasts of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He saith unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then he charged his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. This week has been rather historical and momentous. The Democratic National Convention was held in a new venue using new technology, and quite honestly, I found it much more satisfying than the old format. One of the major themes that emerged from the convention was something we've known but been afraid to speak out loud, at least not in large groups. That we as a nation are at a crossroads. The crossroads between good and evil, between light and darkness, between the powers of heaven and the powers of hell. And while the Christian faith may not teach that heaven is the final destination of some in the afterlife, it does affirm that hell can and sometimes does exist on this side of the grave, and is constantly trying to assert its power over the lives of human beings and all of creation. That the powers of evil and darkness do their damnedest to destroy human dignity, destroy human worth, divide humanity from itself, and conquer for its own sake. Over the last 4 years, we have witnessed this force assert its power. It has uncovered the forces of darkness we thought had been defeated. We have seen the rise of American fascism, the revealing of the prevalent racism that has been the foundation of our society for centuries, that we actually, some of us thought had all gone away, the seizing and abuse of power for the benefit of the few, the blaming of the plight of the poor on themselves, and the hoarding and transfer of great wealth from the pockets of those on Main Street to benefit those who abuse power and trample down people, the likes of which has not been seen on earth for the last 75 years, and never before in this nation on such a grand scale. I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm a clergyman, I'm not a politician. What I am here to talk about is the spiritual crisis, much more critical than the political crisis that faces our nation and that we, the church, are called to be and do in the process. We are the church built upon the faith of St. Peter the Rock. We are the church to which Christ himself gives the promise that even the gates of hell shall not prevail against us. This is not a promise that the road will be either easy or safe, but it is the promise that not even the most evil, the most diabolical, is any match for the powers of love and compassion and mercy and justice, of peace, of unity, the things that are the underpinnings of the entire universe in which we live. It is also not a promise that the things for which Jesus stood, of which he preached, and for which he died and rose again, can come by our just sitting back on our laurels and letting the world pass us by. But it is the promise that as we stand with and for Jesus, as we endeavor to be his heart and his hands and his feet, and on occasion, his voice, that we will not be alone, that Christ will be with us, that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is ours as we head into the dark unknown. Yeah, this is scary and it's daunting. There's no doubt about that. But the darkness is not defeated by running away from it. Jesus didn't run away from the cross. He got nailed to it. But death was not the last word. To be honest, I'm very neutral about being called Father. My baptismal name works just fine, but for those whom the title works, that's perfectly great. However, in this instance, I want to speak to you as the spiritual father of our parish community, to exercise the teaching office of the priesthood. That being said, I also realize that I am not infallible, as supposedly are the successors to St. Peter. But as I pray and I read and I meditate, my gut is giving me some clues that I want to pass on to all of you. Time for a quick sip of water before Humphrey comes in and takes his sip. I suspect the time leading up to the elections on the 3rd of November and afterwards, possibly for quite some time, is going to be quite a time of upheaval for us as a nation. At least that's what we're seeing or hearing in the ether. It'll be fraught with all sorts of conflicting messages, half-truths, non-truths, and things that are just plain old unmitigated BS. It'll be a time of confusion, not just for us and for the whole nation, but in particularly because we know them directly, those whom we know and love and care about. In order for us to be the church, to be the rock on which our faith is built, we are called, not asked or suggested, but we are called to be that rock for ourselves, for each other in the parish, and for others outside the parish. In order to answer this call, we need to prepare now. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. Today, the 22nd of August, needs to be the beginning. But in the process of preparation, we need to remain calm. We need to rest in the peace that Christ offers us and be centered in him and him alone. Remember, panic is never helpful. It just feeds into our fears. But in the process, I think we need to be doing 4 things. First, in order to be fully present, if this all is to come to pass, we need to commit ourselves, if we haven't already, to the beefing up of our prayer lives, being in communion with the divine, the center and ground of all being, on a daily basis. We're not all cut out of the same cloth, so our needs for beefing up our prayer lives will be different. Some people will want to continue offering the online daily prayer. Some will count their beads and say the rosary. Some will say the Jesus prayer. Some will sit and listen to music that feeds the spirit and the soul. The list is endless, and you know what works for you. And during these times each day, observe 2 to 5 minutes of a period of silence. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, inhale the breath, the spirit, and exhale. And remember to pray for each other. Use the parish directory and focus on one person, or use the parish cycle of prayer on daily prayer each day. And remember, don't be afraid to ask for help in figuring these things out. That's why Father Tom and Father Bob and Rick and Susan and I are here. We're not experts, but we are resources to walk with you as you begin to address and continue to address your own prayer practices. And remember, it's called a practice for a reason. We're still learning and growing. The second thing we need to be doing is taking care of each other. To be there for each other, check in on each other, share the burden of the moment with each other. Be Christ for one another. The thing I would suggest is something Cindy Wolf and I have been doing since March, and several others have set up such partnerships. We check in with each other via text every morning after the coffee is made, and we chat and we tell jokes, and sometimes those jokes are jokes you wouldn't tell in church, or at least not from the pulpit, and we share our concerns and our fears as well as our joys. So my recommendation is that each individual or family unit in the parish find one other person in the parish and do the same. And if someone calls and you've already got a partner, let them know so they can keep looking. Give me a call. We'll figure it out. Especially if you need help finding someone. Give me a ring. Give me an email. We'll work it out. While things around us may seem like a hurricane, we need to make sure that we are not isolated or lonely, because those things just make fear worse. We need to keep our focus on Christ. In the process, pray for each other. Encourage each other to keep Jesus as our central focus. Also, if you don't have one already, place a crucifix or a cross or an icon or some sort of religious symbol in a prominent place in your home to remind you of who you are and that you're not alone, that Christ dwells deep within you and calls you to make him known even if the darkness is closing in. And when you do make these connections, keep the connection and the information between you and your partner confidential, like I do when I hear your confessions, so that she or he knows that it's a safe place to say anything, no matter how weird it might sound, because things just might turn out to be very weird in these very weird times. The third thing we need to be doing, at least from my perspective, and I have to admit I'm plagiarizing this from Father Tom. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Get yourself a small notebook or a pad, and each day write down the things for which you are thankful, for which you are grateful, the blessings of your life. Remember our blessings and keep the light burning, just in case the darkness enshrouds us. On my list today I've put all of you and my friends and family, and of course, Humpy. If you have an animal family member, remember that they are reflections of God's kindness towards us, that they are God's gifts to us. The fourth thing is that by taking care of yourself and taking care of each other, you will be given the power of the resurrection, the keys to the kingdom, in order to be a rock for those outside the parish, for those who will be living in the darkness and in the shadow of death. Being the rock for others is one of the surest ways to stand against the forces of darkness and evil, and the gates of hell will not prevail against you or us. They may give it a good try, but they won't ultimately succeed. Being there for others during this time where the storm clouds seem to be gathering, by being there, by being a listening ear, by caring, is vital. And you'll be given the power to do this and more. But also, consider being there in a more physical manner, a more incarnational manner, a more material manner, if you will. Here is just one example, of which there are probably more than a multitude, but I'm asking that we do something that is tangible, something that we can actually feel and move. In March, I emptied Ron's sweater closet in the hall and took the sweaters downstairs. You thought I'd gotten rid of them all at the funeral. Ha ha! Yeah, right. There were even more. Anyway, at that time, I started doing a little extra shopping every time I'd go to the grocery store. A bag of lentils, some basmati rice, a can of chicken, some cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer when it finally came back into the grocery stores, laundry soap, you get the picture. And my freezer is crammed with meat. By June, I'd filled up the closet to the point where I had to clean out another closet to continue the process. I've got enough stored up to keep me going for months if need be. Oh, and cat food. Couldn't forget the cat food, or I would surely hear about it. But the thing that dawned on me soon after starting the second closet, one could take that many different ways, but I'm not even going to go there, was that since we don't know what the future holds, I was storing up not just for myself. Most of the people I know in this neighborhood shop day to day across at Ken's Market across the street. Most of them with whom I've spoken might have a can of soup or tuna, but not much more. The conversations brought on the realization that the Spirit was slapping me upside the head with a snow shovel, as she frequently does, telling me that there might be a time when I'm called to give this stuff away. That realization is also on my gratitude list today. If push comes to shove, I can be Christ for another in a very concrete way, by being able to provide something to eat, something with which to wash clothes, or well, you know what toilet paper is used for, so we'll just leave it at that. Now, let me be honest. None of these things will be a panacea. We're human, and we'll ever only partially succeed, and that's just fine. The only thing God requires, not suggests, God does require things of us at times, is that we try. And trying, while incomplete, succeeds in getting us moving and starting to get the job done. And as the old saying goes, practice makes perfect. Do not, under any circumstances, get down on yourself when success is light years away. Remember, you are a process. We all are, and God isn't finished with us yet. Now, let me be frank. I am not trying to sound alarmist or suggest that we all become survivalists. That is absolutely not the point. The point is that such things are what it means to be the church. The church isn't just a place where nice rituals and the celebration of the sacraments, especially the Mass, or a place where glorious music transports us more deeply into the mystery of God takes place. These things have their vital purpose, but they are not the church. We are. You already know that. And these things feed us so that we might be a firmer rock, a cornerstone, a beacon of the love of God when all around us has sunk into darkness. You might remember a few weeks ago I read a quote from Bishop Charleston, the retired Bishop of Alaska, and he said something that I am paraphrasing. He said, "This is the moment for which we were born, for which we were baptized. This is what all those liturgies and classes and potlucks and picnics and garden parties and cleaning parties were all about. This is the moment for which God has been preparing us through all these years, and the time has come for us to mobilize the faith we confess and put into practice a more focused manner where the rubber meets the road. We are Peter. Petros, which means rock in Greek. We are the rock upon which Christ has built his church, his gathering of active disciples, and the gates of hell cannot prevail against us. Live in that hope because it casts out fear, and fear just feeds the darkness. Be that rock for yourself, for one another, and for those in your sphere of influence. Be the rock on which is constructed the rock of God's immeasurable love, made known to us in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. You'll notice that the links for Zoom Mass are contained in this email. I'll also send another one out in the morning, just in case people can't dig this out again or haven't seen the sermon. And we will discuss these things at church tomorrow. I have to admit, I was very moved and overwhelmed by the reflections last Sunday. I'd made a comment about we try to avoid questions at times. Sure as heck didn't last Sunday. You guys nailed it on the head. And it was very moving and very profound. So keep up the good work. You guys are theologians and you don't even know it. Keep your faith going. You're doing a pretty good job of that. And I will see you tomorrow at Zoom Mass at 10:30. I hope you have a great afternoon. I'm probably going to take a nap or something. I've been out in the garden working and doing that kind of stuff. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a blessed day. Bye.